before we can give anybody a story, we need to kind of know what a ghost or a spirit is, because people say, "Oh, I see ghosts," and they'll go out with these PKE meters and like Ghostbusters, they're trying to find ghosts. Well, you don't go find ghosts that way. These are people. They either want to be associating with other people or they don't. My journey with this began back in 2003, 2004, when I lived in Vicksburg, Mississippi. It began with a very crucial decision of defining ghosts and spirits, because we've all heard of seeing ghosts and we've all watched our shows. So from my perspective, and it's strictly my perspective, our bodies operate on electricity. We're an electrical machine, just like anything else you plug in. We intake nourishment, we convert it to energy, and we expel the waste that we're unable to use. That energy is electric. And this principle is very evident in medical practices. When you think about a heart attack, we shock somebody back to life. To revive the heart's rhythm, we use electricity. Even now, well, way back in time, they did lobotomies and would use electric shock on mental patients, and they realized that was kind of barbaric. But now they've bought that back, only it's a lot more refined. So our bodies are just like a machine. They have a finite operational period, and then ultimately they die. And we just exhaust our time and our heartbeats. But upon death, it is plausible that our essence or our spirit could linger. Maybe a location that we love, maybe somebody that we love. The Bible says, and of course I'm paraphrasing here, God told someone that had died that he could not go back to his family to tell them that money would lead down a bad path. But he didn't say they couldn't go back to earth. He just said they couldn't go back as a human. When I started this, I went to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And Gettysburg is very, very well known for their ghost tours or their ghost stories. In Vicksburg, much like Gettysburg, there are areas where these spirits are frequently observed. And there are locations where they're harder to find. And that, again, my belief is that ghosts cannot harm you, but they can make you hurt yourself. Ghosts don't really have any physical power. Now, there are ghost stories, especially from Leyland French, who owned McRaven. He'll tell you in a heartbeat the ghost pinched his fingers in the dresser drawers and pushed him down the stairs. And I firmly believe what he's saying is the truth. I kind of think maybe the ghosts were just wanting to play with him, but that's his belief. But what I wanted people to understand was the history of Vicksburg and how these spirits tied into it. So when I went to Gettysburg, really we were looking to see what kind of businesses they had that maybe sold Civil War souvenirs, books. I had heard about the ghost tours. And then when we got there, we actually introduced ourselves to some of the people that ran their ghost tours. And Gettysburg is a little bit different than Vicksburg in that the battle actually encompassed the whole city of Gettysburg. In other words, they fought on the streets in Gettysburg. At least with Vicksburg, they were outside on the edge of it, but they fought in the city. There are buildings on the Gettysburg field that the National Park Service will not go into alone. If anybody goes in, they go in with somebody else because they can scare you that bad. There's some other sites up on Seminary Ridge where there's a rock formation that they used to shoot out of, that you can go into it and you think you're in it for like 5-10 minutes and you come out and it's 30 minutes later. It just absorbs time. So that's what we were looking at. So when we came back to Vicksburg, the thought was, okay, we need to tell these same stories about Vicksburg that not only deal with the Civil War, but deal just with the history of Vicksburg. So I started looking around downtown to see what of the businesses could take this piece on, because there was really no cost to it. So when we came back to Vicksburg, the thought was, okay, we need to tell these same stories about Vicksburg that not only deal with the Civil War, but deal just with the history of Vicksburg. So I started looking around downtown to see what of the businesses could take this piece on, because there was really no cost to it. I was going to write the stories, and I did write the stories. And I was willing to do the ghost tour part of it, the walking part of it, to get it started. And we would walk for about a mile, and I would tell the stories. Didn't use any kind of microphone. I've got a big enough mouth. I didn't have to do that. But I went to the paper and had a article put in asking anyone that had an old ghost story about their home or something they knew, if they wouldn't mind sharing it, to talk to me or send it to me, however they wanted to communicate it. And I did have a few people call and say, please don't tell them where this is, because I don't want all these people around my house, that kind of thing. And I understand that. And then I had some people that called and said, hey, look, we're kind of religious and we really don't want you to do this. I said, well, why don't you come do the tour with me? And then if you don't like it, you tell me what I need to change. And I did have some come. And when we got through, they said, oh, you didn't hurt nothing. I said, exactly. All we're talking about is the history and our ghost at Vicksburg. I had a photographer just accompany me. And when we would get to certain locations, I would tell him just to snap pictures. That's very important when you're taking pictures. If you really are wanting to see ghosts or other beings, whatever you want to call it, don't use a flash. Don't take the picture into a light. You want it to be in a truly dark space, because you don't want any artificial light to influence what you're going to see. So most of the time you'll see people that'll get pictures and they'll have orbs in them. And they'll think that, oh, well, there was some light that drifted into my picture. Well, it's not something that drifted into your picture. That is a ghost. That is a spirit. So as these tours progressed, I began guiding participants to specific locations to capture photographs, and then they could identify ghosts where they tend to hang out. It helped some people comprehend the presence of the ghost. And then, however, apparitions were not limited. I have photographic evidence of myself in front of a mirror with a clear figure beside me, unmistakably not of this physical world, but he looked just like a person. Vicksburg battlefield is one of the most intact Civil War battlefields left in the nation. The way it was set up outside of Vicksburg, there's really been nothing to take it over. Now, there are some parts of it on the far south side that I-20 got. You got Walmart and stuff down there. But the bulk of the battlefield is still intact. And they've even gone so far as now to bring it back to what it was, which it was not forested. It was wide open, because that's where everybody had been cutting their wood at for their cooking fires and to keep their homes warm for years. So that part of Vicksburg and that history of it is really phenomenal if you study it. I can tell you a story about our own family, and we'll probably put it into one of these that fought. So there's so much there. Now, the one thing that is different with Gettysburg, since the battlefield itself was in the town and the city, you do have ghost stories coming out of the battlefield. Really, you don't have that many of those coming out of Vicksburg, because when they close the gates at night, people don't tend to go up in there. Now, I know some high school kids have gone in on the back side of the northeast corners of it. But as far as just really going into the battlefield, you really don't have that many people going in there at night. I feel rather confident that if you did, you would learn stuff you really don't want to know. But that's what got this all started. And now it's a matter of I'm recreating what I did, and it's simply because I've gotten older and understand more what I was looking at. So that's where this all comes from. But again, we look at that. We look at the historical significance of Vicksburg. Outside of Natchez, it's also one of the oldest cities on the Mississippi River. There's been something going on there since the 1700s. Being able to do these ghost stories and tell these pieces about Vicksburg and Mississippi and the South is just something that I think needs to get out there.